On this first lesson, even before we go into Illustrator, I'm going to talk about how to tackle a project like an infographic and how it is that I do it every day. So, in my personal experience, most of the clients will give you a brief or a document containing all the research that they did on a topic that interests them or that is related to their business. So for example, I'm going to show you a job that I did a couple of years ago, and this one was for a company called Advanced Medical, and what they gave me the information was why become a nurse. So I did this infographic, and the first thing when I thought of one, or when I think about an infographic, is that every infographic should have a header, in this case, where you can at first glance see what this infographic is going to be about. In this case is why become a nurse. So if you see this image, you're going to see the nurse, but you're also going to see this word nurse as the big one and the one that has a different color and even a shade. So you can, just glancing at this, seeing that we're going to be talking about nurse. And one thing that I also like to do is add the background some elements that don't make this just a plain color. They have some fun and they direct your attention, in this case away from the nurse, but towards this title of why becoming nurse. And then here I have a little text, but this is not as important as this one. And then I like to do is like other thing that I like to do, sorry, is to put the rest of the information, or the information that goes within in a section that is color coded. So for example, on this kind of salmon section, you're going to see here are just a couple of reasons why. And then on the green one, we are talking about this is the same topic, of course, but this is a whole different subtopic. So for example, in here we're talking about from the operating room to the emergency room. These are great earning spots available all around hospitals. So this, while these two are related, this one is completely different from this one. So that's why that's what I like to make them different with color. And then here is you can specialize, and I also like to make these subtitles stand out so you can again at first glance see what this section is going to talk about, so you can specialize. And then I have these little icons that are created for each one of the specializations. And then here you can travel, and one thing that I like to do is that even if I have a lot of text, I like to have a little illustration that goes along with what I'm talking about, in this case travel. And then if for example your information has is talking about a place that is geographically located somewhere in the world, for example this company is located in the United States, so they were talking about the highest paying states there, and I made this map so I could show exactly where these states are. And I use the same map for this other information that is kind of the same, but it's different with the most job openings. Another thing that I like to do is that, for example, in this particular area, I was given a quote about Mahatma Gandhi, so I made an illustration of him. So even though when you are just looking at this at the first glance, you're going to see Gandhi and think, oh, this is about helping or doing something for others. And then in the case of information like this about the top 10 nursing schools, I thought that since we're talking about schools, a good idea could be to use books, since you use a lot of books on the schools. So here you can see how I rate each of the nursing schools using books. And finally, it is important that you have for example in this case the logo of the company, so people go look at this company, but also the sources, because if you want to learn more and go beyond what you just read on this infographic, you can see where this information came from. This is another example that I did, and on this one, let me go on the top, I again made a big header, and as I told you before, I like to make some contrast with the background so it's not just a plain color. And here I was talking about a snapshot of what life as a recruiter looks like. So I thought that it would be fun to make this camera and have an actually photo here of this recruiter and what his life is. And one thing that I like to do is just not put the text right there on the background. So make something that contains the text and that can easily put them apart from the other elements of your infographic. Then here again you can see that I have a big title that talks to you about what we're going to be talking here, and again I try to make my text be contained on something so you can go easily between these parts and have a neat illustration. Another thing that you can do is, for example, here you can use illustrations to show what you're talking about. For example, here you said that 2.5 cups of coffee a day, so I made 2.5 cups, and you can easily think about that. Or the co-workers here, 8 out of 10, so I made 8 co-workers. Company culture, I made this symbol that talks about unity. And for example, in this one I had percentages, so I thought that what better way to do it that with a pie chart, and it could be even better if I made a watch around the pie chart, because this is how they spend their time. So I hope this has given you a glance of how the information could be laid out. And another thing that I want to talk about is color or fonts. As you can see here, I try to use bold fonts for titles, and I try to use fonts that go well when you are reading long pieces of text, and try to think on colors that go well with one another, but that, for example, on these ones none of these colors is kind of saturated, all of them are kind of pale, but this is the my color selection that I did for this for this infographic. And one thing that you could do if you would like to do something more about color is this website, colorhunt.co, is very nice, because in here you can see different palettes created by different people, and get inspired in each of these palettes. For example, if you're going to be talking about something, let's see, if you're going to talking about something that has to go big with love, for example, if you're doing an infographic about Valentine's Day, then maybe you want to go use red colors to show passion or love. Or if you are talking about a more cute theme, you can use these colors. Or if you're talking about summer, probably you could be using these kind of colors. And the nice thing is that you can use these colors as a base, and if you go put your mouse on top of them, you can see the number and actually input that same number in Illustrator and get the same colors. And you have to be aware that the colors that you pick for your infographics are going to transmit the information. So if you pick very, very bright colors, you have to make sure that your topic goes well with that. You're not going to be talking about death with bright colors, or you're not going to be talking about a really fun topic with grays, because then people are not going to understand the mood of your infographic. Another thing that you have to consider are the fonts. So Google Fonts offers very nice fonts that you can download for free, and you can select a font that goes well with your topic. Or like I said, if you're planning to include a lot of text, then you have to make sure that you can use a font that you can read easily, and it's not a font that you're going to have a hard time reading, because otherwise in this case your audience for your infographic are going to get tired, and they're not going to really enjoy or read all the infographic. So with this, I think you're going to have a more understanding of what an infographic is. And on the next lesson, we're going to begin working on our infographic in Illustrator.